saw this in TIFF, and I really loved the film.
Oh, you saw it a year ago. That's great.
Yeah, when it was known as the F word.
The F word. It's still known as the F word in its home country.
Right. Well, yeah, I want to talk about that later.
Sure.
But to start, I want to ask, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but to just get into this seems like an odd turn for you after Fubar and Goon.
Yes.
How did you end up here? Why?
It was kind of a conscious decision, you know, to do something totally different. Like, I had done a lot of my movies are sort of visceral and caustic and like the, you know, kind of violent, more like guys films. And
is this not a guys film? Though?
This is a guys film. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it has similarities. It's the same tone of humor, I think, and you know, you could definitely see it as a continuation of my work, but. Yeah, it was a conscious decision to do something a little quieter and do something a little softer and a little bit more mature than other stuff. And I was a big fan of the genre. Like, I think the genre has been really maligned in the last few years, and I think for me, I was excited. I thought the script gave me a chance to do something that could sort of become sort of a perennial film in this genre if we got it right, you know, and be one of those movies that people watch every Valentine's. Like, I found the emotional impact of the script was great, and it was a beautiful slow boil to it, and I was excited to kind of try and capture that on film, and also, you know, shoot with sort of longer takes and try to get the performances within one frame, like shoot with 2 shots and longer shots, and just sort of flex my muscle directing actors that way, and not I come from an editing background, so I'm always about coverage, and I'm always about like, oh God, what if we don't have enough coverage, or what if I can't do it? And you know, this was about a lesson in me saying, we got it, let's move on. You know, and doing more takes, but on one takes, and making sure we have it all in one take, and then going and just doing simple walk and talks, and just directing the actors in that rhythm. You know, which was great and a huge education for me.
Of course. You were talking about the script from early on. You felt like it was different for the genre. That's kind of my feeling with it, and that now that we see it, we get that sense, like this is a whole different thing for the genre. But I'm curious if when you first got that sense, like you were saying, that when you read it, you knew that this could be something different. Is that because you feel that the genre is that tired, or that it just needs new material, or what? You know, what does it really need to get revamped?
I think it needs. I think what it needed, and I think we're starting to actually see it now with this film, and there's a couple other films that are coming out. I think it needed to get sort of the romance sort of based more in reality, and have everything become a little bit more grounded again. And I think that's what differentiates this film from a lot of them, is that there's no real villain. You know, the boyfriend isn't like a bad guy, and the people don't act like sociopaths. You know, then there's not shenanigans to sort of get the person to fall in love with the other person. It's really simple, and there's really simple gears to the script and to the narrative. Like, the boyfriend moves away, that dirties the water. Then the girl or her sister is interested in Wallace, that dirties the water. And then she has a job interview or an opportunity in Taiwan, that dirties the water. And what it equates to is a beautiful slow boil, where these people fall in love, and their sense of humor is the thing that brings them together, and it also quietly becomes their sort of symbol for their love for each other. So by the end of the film, you know, by the time they sort of forgive each other and start ripping the crap out of each other again, it's a beautiful testament of their love. And I thought that was a really, really beautiful moment, you know? And it was quite touching. And I think it's those sort of moments of honesty that are maybe missing in some of these sort of some of these rom-coms that give the genre a bad name.
No, I completely agree with you. And that was one of the things I was going to mention, is that there are a lot of these really beautiful personal moments. Even just the way like Zoe will react to something he says on the phone, and you can see those sort of mechanisms of her brain turning more into him, and yet you don't need to go exaggerate this. It just sort of happens, and like you said, it builds piece by piece. And I really love how you captured those more intimate moments, and I think they really play to the bigger emotion of the film, rather than just saying, here's piece after piece of what's happening.
No, exactly. It's I mean, they're both such great actors, and they both have such a nice, quiet presence to them that's quite strong. But it's subtle, and it works really well. And Zoe in particular has a beautiful physicality to her that makes it both unique, but also very emotive. And it just as you say, it subtly you subtly see her sort of start to turn a little bit in the film as it goes along. And you know, some scenes help that, like the dressing room scene that help to sort of reveal her inner feelings to people, or to the audience. But yeah, she does a great job of just, you really feel the dilemma she has. And it's not an easy dilemma, because her boyfriend is an arc asshole. You know?
Right.
He's not. It's not an easy decision for her.
Right. Well, who came first in casting then, Zoe or Dan? And
Oh, Dan came first. Yeah, we cast Dan first. We need, you need in order to finance in a independent film, you need Daniel Radcliffe first.
But I guess I just thought about.
But I also, he was cast creatively as well. He's perfect for the part.
Yeah, I mean, I love him in it, but finding that balance, like I guess. Don't take this the wrong way, but the first time I heard like these two are together, I'm like, okay, is it gonna work? But then you watch it and it doesn't work in the conventional sense you would expect, but it works in the sense you're talking about, where the humor plays off of each other perfectly, and where they're just sort of natural in a like genuine way.
Yeah, they make each other laugh, and it's the simplest trick in the world that we use comedy just to push the romance, which isn't. Which is so simple, but it works. I mean, that's the thing that brings them together. It's the essence of flirting with one another.
Yeah.
And the problem with half of these rom-coms is that they're neither funny nor romantic. They're
laying it down. But you're right though.
I am right. I mean, they're like God. They're so. By the time you get to it, it's been such absurd plot lines that you don't care if the people get together. And this one, it's the opposite. It's quiet, sincere, honest sort of. Storytelling that leads to like a real care about whether or not these guys will come together at the end. At least I like to think that.
No, you're right. I have to ask then, are there any moments that are drawn from like your own personal reality, or someone, or the writers, or someone else is on set saying like, oh, this really happened to me, you should do it this way because this is more real than some slight moment,
Yeah, I think a lot. There's some moments definitely drawn from the writer's background. I'm trying to think specifically from mine. Nothing that I can think specifically that was.
That always goes through my mind when I'm watching. Yeah. It's like, oh, did you experience this exact moment in your life? And you're like, I want to own up to that and show it, but
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm sure there is, but I can't. Mine are more like stupid things like. Like there's the scene where Adam takes the beer and drinks half of it and then gives it to him as a direct nod to Vacation. It's like Uncle Eddie sharing his beer with Clark Griswold.
Yeah.
But there's just little things like that, little nods from my own experience.
Right. How much improv? And I guess I asked this question from the standpoint of what you were talking about earlier about how you just sort of let them walk and talk and sort of develop. How much of that is natural, them starting to sort of say their own jokes and come up with their own lines versus what's written?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I use a lot of improv as a director. I love it. It allows the actors to sort of infuse their own personality and sense of humor, and I think it breeds a lot of honesty in a performance. Mm-hmm. And for me, this was a particular interesting one because it didn't need a lot of improv. Mm-hmm. Like I like to use it and let actors go off. Like the same scene, like when Driver's talking to Daniel at the lawn bowling thing. You're like, suddenly just a situation presents itself. You're like, heckle the old people, and then that just goes to riff it off. But what I tried to do was find moments where we could get two cameras on them and shoot both sides of them and let them riff. And we picked like the party, the diner, the at the campfire when they're talking about Cool Whip. All those moments were sort of moments where we said, okay, have at her. And the first half of that scene, especially the first scene in the diner, is scripted, and then it flows seamlessly into them talking about, shit lockets or like different elements of that scene, which was great because that was that was sort of day 4 shooting, and it was a good opportunity for them just to sort of try to make each other laugh and like naturally flirt, and it all sort of helped build that sense of chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah. Do you find that it's harder to develop these scenes, or is it easier once you found the right cast and they just go at it, and it's harder to sort of construct other elements?
What do you mean, like in terms of the right, like guiding the development of the scene and seeing and the script? Yeah. I think you get it to a point where you're happy with it without the cast, and then I think once the cast comes in, then you re-look at it and see how we can push it further. But I'm not a big fan of sort of rehearsal and then rewrite. I'm a big fan of like rehearsal, just to sort of everybody get to know each other. But my fear is that if you rehearse too much and don't have cameras there, you lose it, and you want that magic on the day, because I think there's something to that first thing that's really beautiful and gorgeous.
And you want to capture all.
And you want to capture that because you capture the surprise, and that's half of it. Especially if you got two cameras, you can get both sides. It's what makes improv so honest is the reaction, and not necessarily what they say.
Yeah. What is I guess I'd ask what is the best lesson you can now impart upon other filmmakers that you learned from this specific film?
It's a great question. Have faith in a long take. Have faith in the actors acting and just having them on the frame, and don't underestimate the power of the rhythm of that scene, and don't try to build a moment when you have the moment in your two shot. That would be my that's what I learned on this one.
For sure. So can you reuse that in the next Goon? I love Goon, but it's like you know, continue
no,
to
but Goon's
build
like a very like you can feel the hand of me on that film, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like you can it's like building those moments, and this was like it's such a dialogue heavy movie. It was like I wanted to sit back and like just kind of let them talk and let them, you know, just be sort of have the audience be an observer in their lives, and not necessarily be right there, sort of like switching their head back and forth on it, you know.
You started in editing, I think you said.
Yeah.
Is editing still something you like doing, or
Yes.
still participating in? And my part of this question was also, what is your favorite part of filmmaking?
That is a good question. I tell you, my least favorite part of filmmaking is casting and location scouting.
But that's why you have a casting director and your location scouts.
Exactly. I think shooting and editing are my favorite. Probably editing at the end of the day, because it's you find stuff that it's so personal, and you really find moments, and you can build things that are. You find great discoveries, and especially structurally when you move things around. You know, when you improve your film and you solve things, there's nothing like it. And shooting's just fun. Like I love shooting. I mean, just being on location, and working with everybody. It's a great time. It's stressful, but it's yeah. I mean, I find it funny writing is like. Writing is very hard, but it comes from it's endless, right? Like it's infinite. You can take anything and then you boil it down to that. And editing's the opposite of writing, in a way where you have fine lines. Yeah.
Are you the kind of person that prefers to stay in the editing room as long as you possibly can and play with different versions until you finally get one?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be much more like that when I used to just cut the films myself. You could just bury me away and send coffee every 2 hours, and I could. But I was, I mean, I think the old saying is you don't finish editing, you just stop, you know. And for me, it's such an important thing. Like, depending on the editor, many times I'd like to work like Walter Murch, where you're standing up, and with one editor in particular who's also a director, we just switch off, and it's a great relationship because he gets to sit back and look at the footage from a different perspective, and me, rather than explaining the cut, I just get to jump in and do it with my hands, and many times that's the only way you can find the right rhythm. It's just a gut instinct thing.
I want to talk briefly about the title, only because I actually really love the F word, and I think you do too, as the original title.
Yeah.
And I know I think it, like you said, it still remains in Canada and probably a couple other countries.
Yeah.
But it was changed to What If in the U.S., and I was also just reminded that you had to cut down some of the dialogue and language used in it.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that and just sort of
sure. I mean, when you make a film, you hope to sell it to the States as a Canadian director making Canadian films, and and it's sometimes that's not. There's some things you have to do, and CBS was great. I mean, they sat us down. They said, we want to do a couple things, and one of them is change the title. So they're very upfront about it, and they said it's because of the MPAA. They said that we're going to have issues with the MPAA, and sure enough, we did. But which
I find surprising, because this is not a movie you would expect them to say anything about.
Yeah, but
there's not even that much like sex in it at all. It's all about language and what's going on, and it's very sweet. And I don't know how they could have a problem with it, but
but that's the nature. I mean, I don't pretend to understand what the MPAA wants or anything.
Does anyone?
Does anyone?
Yeah.
And so the title was one thing, and it's a hard thing to change the title, especially a good title, which everybody sort of likes. But we tried to do together and figure it out, and at the end of the day, it's What If, and I don't mind it. I think it works. I mean, what I understood from changing titles is that I know nothing about naming a movie outside of my own personal taste. We'd ask complete strangers what they think of this title or that title, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. Do you know what I mean? It's just you got to trust your distributors and support them.
Of course.
And then for we had to change a couple of lines just to get it to the PG-13, but it wasn't anything crazy at all.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I didn't think about it until they had reminded me, and I thought, oh yeah, I liked how honest the cuss was, because it's like it is reality. That's what they say, and it was fun to see that.
Yeah,
but I don't think it took away. I guess the last thing I just want to ask is, where do you plan to go from here? And do you plan to stay more in this kind of, like you're saying, the change of pace for you kind of material, or do you want to go back and do Goon?
I want to do like a Silkwood shower and like scrub this off me.
Seriously?
I want to go do an action hard R comedy, which I think I will.
A hard R comedy.
Hard R action comedy.
I
think that's the last malign genre. Is the action comedy.
Well, I was gonna say that genre has been really getting revamped recently, thanks to the likes of like 21 Jump Street.
Yeah, but starting to.
Right, but that shows the potential of where it can go. I think
I think about the watermark of like 48 Hours or Lethal Weapon or those where it's hard R. It's like real bad guys, real action. I think a lot of those movies are comedies first, and then the action is sort of an afterthought, and it all feels kind of stunty and weird, and where I want more of like a French Connection action. You know what I mean? Where the action is hardcore. It's like Blues Brothers, where it's like rough and tumble and piled up, but it's also really funny.
Yeah. Damn, I can't wait to see this. Well,
yeah.
Good luck, and
thank you, man.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks. I appreciate your support.